Welcome to the January 23rd, 2024 regular meeting of the Board of Education. Mr. Rich, could we please have a roll call?
You may. Ms. Smith?
Here.
Ms. Fox?
Here.
Ms. Weems?
Here.
Ms. Heinrich?
Here.
Mr. Walker?
Here.
I myself am here. Dr. Blau?
I am here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Walker, thank you for leading us.
I pledge
Thank you. Next, do we have a motion for the approval of the agenda?
Support?
Motion made by Ms. Weems to approve the agenda, supported by Mr. Rich. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Announcements. I am excited to report that we have some teachers in our district who are reading The Knowledge Gap and having some very powerful and profound discussions about this. The author is going to be joining us in a Zoom conversation as well, so that's very exciting. I recently, last night as a matter of fact, participated in the Innovation for Teaching and Learning Strategic Planning conversation where a teacher from Power Middle School and 3 teachers from Farmington High School shared the innovative things that they are doing in their classrooms to increase student engagement and deepening of student learning. So it's exciting to see the different elements that we put in place over the last few years, the authentic tasks, the positioning, the noticing, together with our profile of the lifelong learner, and all of the literacy work that we've been doing, seeing that come to fruition and begin to weave together at the classroom level. So thank you to those teachers who are doing this work, and thank you for sharing it with us last night at the meeting. There also were opportunities for board members to participate in some storytelling today, but it was a snow day, so we have to sign up again. But we welcome the opportunities to join in with our students and teachers in the classroom when those opportunities become available. We had some really amazing events for the Martin Luther King Day celebrations last week. Several of us were able to attend the student panel discussion last Monday evening, and thank you again to everyone who participated in organizing and facilitating those events throughout the day that day. Next, we have our report from the Student Roundtable.
Hello, everybody. My name is Anirudh Bomanaveni, and I'm the president of Student Roundtable for the 2023 to 2024 school year. So for those of you who have attended some of the prior meetings, you would know that the Student Roundtable has been working to propel this idea of a career fair, an opportunity for the students in our district to sort of get like a feeling of what is after high school. We're preparing our students for high school. We want them to sort of experience that and not only have their first shot at, or first exposure to their career to be once they enter college, once they enter those internships. And we originally began preparing this idea last year, but unfortunately, due to time constraints, we weren't able to bring it into fruition last year. So we have some exciting news. So in our last meeting, we did make some strides regarding the career fair. So we established a tentative date of Friday, May 3rd, which is a day that we found sort of aligns with everyone for the career fair. It is right before AP exams, but we thought it's a sort of a way for students to step away from like the studying, just like a little thing right before. And another initiative or decision that we took regarding that is we wanted to post this career fair, or at least begin it during the school day, because what we really identified was that it's hard to make students take initiative, but if we facilitate it into our current school day. We're sort of giving students that nudge and giving an opportunity where they don't have to take that extra time outside of their school day to, come back to school and do something like that, just so we're able to propel the idea and give students the best opportunity possible to get that exposure. In addition, we identified the host school as North Farmington, and we are still trying to figure out the logistics on how we want to get some students over. Just for logistics' sake, we said that we want to contain the event to our upperclassmen, just because they're closer towards their career goals and it makes more sense to hold an event for them. And perhaps if we have extra capacity, once we see what our sign-up turnout looks like, give opportunity for some underclassmen to maybe sign up and also participate in the event. And regarding that, we also wanted to make sure that the event wasn't solely just careers, but also give students the opportunity to explore internships, maybe give summer job opportunities, bring in some of the local businesses that offer students summer jobs and et cetera. Another thing was, I know we wanted to also have some seminars such as interview skills seminars where students learn how to carry themselves in an interview, this type of preparation, maybe how to build a resume, things like that. So we're trying to build those out, but definitely we now have a solid date in place and we're really excited to see where it goes. All right.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next, we have items from our secretary. Mr. Rich.
Thank you. The board has received communications regarding international education rankings, revising African American and history and African American literature courses, MLK celebrations, missing attachments for board agendas and meetings, and the Storyteller program at STEAM. The board acknowledges communications and responds when appropriate. A list of correspondence can be found in the board packet accessible on the Farmington Public Schools website.
Thank you, Mr. Rich. Do we have any legislative updates?
The only update is the governor's State of the State is scheduled for tomorrow at 7 p.m. We look forward to hearing what kind of things the governor has on her agenda for this upcoming year, and we anticipate a few things coming for public education and some strides that we had over the past year, and hope to see those then reflected in her budget when that gets presented.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to our district updates. Dr. Delgado.
Thank you, Dr. Blau. Good evening, everyone. Couple things for me. So first of all, thank you to all of our community for your patience with the snow and ice days. We were told that we were going to have kind of a mild winter this year, which I believe we have, but then again, we live in Michigan. But I sincerely want to thank our community for their patience and flexibility, our staff and our students. We understand the impact of a lost instructional day, and especially for those families that have to take work off and lose that revenue. So we don't take the decisions lightly, and whenever possible, we try to announce them in the evening before a snow day so you have adequate time to make arrangements. So thank you again for your flexibility. And good luck to our high school students who have had to study and prepare for finals and then wait for finals and then take a day off and then wait for finals. So tomorrow will be your final finals for the first semester, and then we'll get on with the second semester. So good luck to all of our high schoolers tomorrow. Another comment for me. A reminder, schools of choice for the 24-25 school year is right around the corner. So our window of opportunity for residents in Oakland County school districts other than Farmington to apply to come to Farmington is January 29th through February 16th. We'll be accepting applications in grades K through 9, as well as our Farmington Online program. You have to be an Oakland County resident, and it is limited schools of choice, which means that we reserve the right to review any kind of discipline or anything of that nature. But we continue to be a destination district. Every year we have about 200 applications, and we try to accommodate as many as we can. So please tell your friends and families who live outside of Oakland County what a great place Farmington Public Schools is, and come join us. Just to mention, we would like to promote and invite you to attend our rescheduled Farmington High School play. This was rescheduled from before the winter break. It's called The Election, and the show is on this Friday and Saturday, 7:30 at Farmington High School. Once again, The Election. So please come check out our wonderful students at Farmington High School. And then our final update is our quarterly dashboard. We have our 2020 bond update, so I'll turn it over to Mr. Barth and team to give us our 2020 bond update.
Good evening, board members. This is our normal quarterly dashboard for the bond work that we're doing. And I'll turn it over to Scott in a second. I just wanted to mention that we're going full steam ahead toward the tail end of the bond. And our bond team has been exceptional. So we've done a lot of work preparatory for what's going to come this year and next year. There's a lot of work happening this summer coming up at Warner and ECC and Central. So there's a lot of work to be done, but Scott will give you more information on what's been spent currently, what the bond dashboard looks like in terms of dollars going forward, but we're in great shape right now. So I'll turn it over to Scott.
Thank you, John, and good evening, everyone. Thank you again for the time tonight. We were last here back in September, so it's been roughly 4 months since our quarterly dashboard. So we're close, but not quite every 3 months. Our first slide is really just a reminder to everyone of how the bond money is split up, just as in potential buckets. So again, the majority of it being construction, but let's not forget all the great furniture that's being provided, the technology improvements, and also plenty of buses here within the bond scope. Our summary sheet here, we started out with $98 million. 5.3 has been moved over into this bond that we're using from the past bond, and 2.4 million of earned interest to date. Credits to the business office for their investing of the bond proceeds to date. So that was 2 million last time we were here, so it's up another 400,000. Our bond proceeds, I think this pretty much closes out the 2018 bond at this point, so we're really focusing on the 2020 bond in its entirety. So that brings our total funding that's being managed of just over $105 million. Commitments and contracts to date, we're at $72.6 million, and that's about $5.7 million increased from last time. And our actual costs are just over $64 million as of the middle of this month. Diving a little bit deeper, again, we break things into 4 major compartments: our construction categories, our FF&E, fixtures, furniture, and equipment, buses, and then technology security. Our commitments are now just over $72.5 million, again, up about $5.7 million. About 50% of that is in the construction. That's the Bid Pack 10 award from this previous fall, as well as about $1.5 million in FF&E and technology security. And our actuals approved are up almost $12 million, probably about 2/3 of that, again, being attributed to the construction category. Forecasting commitments, that's the money we have really left that's unallocated, but not that it doesn't have a purpose. Future projects, so the roughly 31 million, 14 million of it is related to construction. The large majority of that, some of that is Bid Pack 11 work, which was approved previously. We're just working through the commitment portion of that, allocating costs between buildings, et cetera. So when you reduce that, roughly $7.8 million, roughly 6.8 is really those future projects that haven't been designed or awarded yet. And for the most part, that's the steam fire alarm upgrade that we're going to be presenting to you all tonight. It consists of some athletic improvements proposed at North Farmington and Farmington High Schools, as well as some work over at the transportation building as well. In addition, the FF&E that's really the remaining budget that has to be spent, as well as the same for buses. And then technology, again, that's the $12 million is the work that was proposed under the bond scope that has yet to be moved forward with or implemented at this time. Our owner contingency remains solid at this point in the bond of just over $2.1 million. That's roughly $1.6 million in owner contingency and about $500,000 still to the positive in bid savings to date through all of our bid packs. Again, totaling out to about $105 million. The charts down below roughly represent where we're at. I would argue that the construction district-wide says 79% committed, but again, taking into account the Bid Pack 11 award previously, we're probably pushing 90% at this point. As Dr. Barth stated earlier, it's going to be a busy summer this year. We're in probably 10 buildings to different capacities. There are still some open items at Bid Pack 16 that we're hoping to implement in February with respect to the emergency generator. We need to coordinate that work while the school district's on break. The same is true over at Farmington STEAM Academy with their generator, and we're looking to do that over spring break. At North Farmington, similarly, we've got a few loose ends and a generator to install there too. The challenge there, of course, with the high school is trying to find time to do work when there's so many great activities occurring at the school. And then Kenbrook, again, a generator, common theme, long lead items, continual changes in deliveries. We are full swing now over renovating the new central office over at the old Visions that started earlier this month, and we're planning to be done with that in June, and that will allow some time for everyone to transition over prior to the start of the school year. And then bid packs 10 and 11, you can see the list of projects. Farmington High School, Lanigan Elementary, those are both kitchen projects that we'll be most likely working on over the summer. And then we have our heavy lifts over at Warner Middle School, which we're probably going to try and start some of that work this spring, probably around spring break time frame, but again, as coordinated always with the district. Same with Farmington Central. Farmington Early Childhood is a smaller project, and same with the Farmington High School main entrance. We probably won't get started with those till school gets out, but as always, we're looking for opportunities to advance the work. But as you can see, we're in a great number of buildings this summer to different capacities. As far as photos go, we haven't completed a lot of projects since September, but one of the main projects we did complete was the grand opening of the new Visions Unlimited program over there. So kind of a project spotlight. We wanted to share some photos here. So working from the outside in, here's our new front entrance with some fresh landscaping that's new. We've got ADA accessibility now to our gym from the back of the building, new playground equipment, and our new parking lot, which will be on the east side of the building. That's where our buses will come in and drop students off. Moving in, here you are at the main office. All new layout, all new casework. This is some views down the main corridor. Very nice and fresh, all new furniture throughout the building. This is the cafeteria. Looks very nice with the new furniture. We've got some custom logos in there that were designed, and Buddy, the dog.
And I will say, just so you guys know, I talked to Doreen right after they opened, the kids loved that building. Like, they were ecstatic. I mean, she couldn't even describe how happy they were there, so.
And then the gym, we complete upgrade as far as finishes go in there too. So we added some basketball hoops that weren't there before, completely replaced the flooring, took down some old curtains, repainted it, new doors. Here's some looks into some of the classrooms. So again, you'll see some new furniture. We have a production lab as well. It's more of a specialty room for the students there. An adaptive restroom, which we had to replicate from the old Visions. So a lot of great things, and again, we opened up just after the new year over there. Upcoming work, we talked a little bit about it, but again, later tonight, we'll be presenting on the Farmington STEAM Academy fire alarm system updates. That will be, with your approval, that will be started here in the spring and completed this summer. We're going to be starting our design work for transportation. So that includes a lot of parking lot upgrades to the existing asphalt there, as well as expanding the service bays to accommodate some of the buses that have been purchased here in the last few years. We're solidifying timelines for that work, but again, most of it will be planned for next summer. We're also solidifying our design timeline. It'll be in August or maybe later that fall where we'll be coming back to you guys again to present those awards. And then this is also something that's been talked a lot about here in the district, is doing some athletic type work at the two main high schools, and that would consist of video scoreboards at both North Farmington High School and Farmington High School, potentially sound systems as well, and then replacing the lighting on the fields, but also looking to add lighting to the auxiliary fields, which would give some additional flexibility to those fields as well. We talked a little bit about adding lookouts for the marching band so that they frequently use that area as well. So again, making sure that that field's usable for all different folks that would can enjoy the space. Those are all projects we would be looking to implement next summer. And that concludes the dashboard for tonight. Any questions?
Yes, Ms. Smith?
First, I want to thank you for your presentation. It touches my heart to see the great work that you did at the New Vision School. I happen to be the one that knew the before and after. What a beautiful facelift. And I'm happy to see how the students could benefit from that, especially the students that we have put in place in that building. I know from looking at the pictures, there was a lot of hard work and a lot of thought that went into doing that building for the students. For those that don't know, Visions is the school for our special needs kids. I also see you still have the dog up there, the little bulldog, so their mascot. So thank you, and thank you for all the hard work that you both have done. I didn't know you had gotten a promotion to doctor. Dr. Delgado didn't tell us that, so congratulations on that one. Thank you.
And I do want to give credit to Wakely Associates. Brian Smilnak is here, but his partner Nathan Laurie is not here. However, he designed the buddy dogs. Initially, those were inserts in the cafeteria for the old tables that came out. I said, we can't leave them like that. So he took it upon himself to design those buddy dogs, and the kids just love them. So if you get a chance, take a look at those.
Absolutely.
Great graphics.
Ms. Weems?
Just one more question, thank you. Great work thus far. It seems like we've got $31 million left of the bond. I just wanted to get clarity. I think you answered the question, but it went a little fast for me. So of the 31, there's another, you said 7 that has been not earmarked or committed, but we have knowledge of use for, including the matters that will be coming up tonight. Is that right? And if so, does that leave, I'm trying to get a sense for what is left and how do we make decisions about the small amount left going forward?
Yeah, so if you look at the 14.1, I think is maybe where you were focusing, Terry. Roughly 8 of that is coming off the top. You won't,
So,
once we
I'm
do
sorry,
this-
help me, where's 14.1?
Sorry, right.
Oh, in the construction side, yes,
forecasted
I see,
commitments.
yes.
So approximately 7.8 million of that was previously approved as bid pack 11
Okay,
here. Once those commitments are entered into the system, that number will be reduced and that money will come into the commitment side. So if you think of it that way, it's 14.6 minus 7.8.
and then you'll take the 7.8 and those matters that you just identified later in the presentation on what's next, that will come out of the 7.8 that's left.
Well, it'd be more like, what's 7.82? It's like 6 point something. So that's the projects we talked about with the fire alarm
Yes.
system at STEAM, the athletics, the transportation projects. Those would be the big ones that are in that, those projected or forecasted commitments. You know, and then the soft costs associated with the construction contingencies, design fees, management fees, et cetera.
So after today, that number becomes more like 5?
On the forecasted commitments?
Yeah,
Be a little bit higher, but yeah.
okay.
Whatever the bid pack 11 was, I think it was around 7.8. That will come and get moved over, and that number will be decreased accordingly.
Okay, thank
Does that
you.
make sense?
Yes, it does.
Any other questions? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Those are the end of our district updates.
Wonderful. Let's move ahead then to reports from board committees. And first up, we have Mr. Rich with the Communications and Community Engagement Committee.
Yes, so the Communications and Community Engagement Committee met on January 11th to do a debrief of our October 3rd community dialogue, which was a focus on budget priorities in the district. Kind of going over a lot of what was discussed at the last dialogue and trying to figure out ways to improve the process as a whole moving forward and for our next one, which brings me to our topics for the February dialogue happening on February 13th from 6:30 to 8:30. We went off of the topic that was brought up most when the district sent out a survey and had a lot of focus on was athletics. And so what that entails as regards to full teams, varsity, JV, club sports, the differences between that and everything in between as well. So we will have a district overview of the athletic program and then go into discussion with less of a prescribed feel than last time. It will be a more open format. So we look forward to a very healthy dialogue. And so if you don't have plans before Valentine's Day, feel free to spend that time with us.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Rich. Next up, we have the Finance and Facilities Committee. Ms. Weems?
Yes, the Finance and Facilities Committee met on January 17th. That committee is comprised of myself and Ms. Heinrich and Mrs. Fox. We discussed several matters. First was the budget amendment. Several adjustments have been made to the budget to account for increases and decreases. The net is a $125,000 increase. We discussed how the district was evaluating instructional priorities and supports needed, and incorporating priorities from the various strategic planning processes that are in place. The next step is for the district to develop its budget for the next cycle and its forecast for the next several years. There is a presentation later on today. That budget amendment will be reviewed today and then proposed to this board in a following meeting on February 6th. There was also discussion of the STEAM fire alarm. A review was done over the summer, and it was determined that fire system needed to be updated. That will come to us today also as a discussion item and as an action item on February 7th. There was discussion of the central office remodeling project. That is the building right behind us or in front, wherever it is. And so we've had some discussion at this table related to that before. And so the committee really was drilling in to really understand the whys. So there are really some rather significant limitations on what can be done with that building to begin with. So remodeling is not an option. The building is very old and would require an elevator should the building be renovated. And so the cost associated with that is just not feasible, not doable. Demolishing the property is also extremely expensive. And because of the way the property is graded, there's a requirement to maintain a retaining wall. There's also, interest in preserving that hill that the community enjoys, and so demolition of the building is also expensive and was not an option. The value of the property, also because of the grading, is also not as valuable as we would have imagined or thought. First of all, because you're limited with respect to what can be done to that property because of the grading. And because of the structure of the building. Selling it would also likely result in demolition, which is at a further cost, and again, you're limited to what could be put on that property. So considering all of those factors, the district is opting to have us consider turning that facility into storage. And that would be at a cost, but in comparison to some of the other options, appears to be a bit more attractive. There are lots of positives to using that structure as storage. Currently, a large portion of it is already actually being used as storage. I did not recognize that, had an opportunity to tour it. Several of us did this past weekend, and I was actually amazed at how it was structured. If anyone remembers how Harrison was configured, it worked as a high school, but it was weird. That building is also very odd in its layout. So we also took a look at various storage areas around the district, and there are various uses of space in our schools that are being used as storage that could otherwise be prioritized. Classrooms right now are being used as storage. Other areas that are likely not a good place to be used as storage are packed, and so it would be a good idea to purge and reprioritize some of the space in our current buildings. So for that reason, the district is going to be proposing to transfer that building into a storage space. We also pay for storage. There are various trailers and such that we're currently spending money on every year to do that. So looking at some of the cost-benefit analysis, the finance team was interested in hearing the district's proposal. That will come tonight and will be on a future agenda for approval. And then, I think this is finally, the canopy update. So Farmington High School has some work to provide more security around their front entrance. It was one of the only buildings that didn't have a complete remodel of its front structure. And so one of the alternate bids that came to us was a proposal to make that front space really actually a great space for students. Unfortunately, in that bid packet, I think it was bid packet 11, both the proposal for the front entrance renovation and the bid alternate came to us for review and approval, and this board did approve it. But the bidder did not actually bid on the alternate. So that means that that needs to go back out to bid, and because of the cost of it, it will come back to this board for approval. So I didn't want anybody to wonder why it was coming back to us when we've already approved it. The reason is because the selected bidder that we agreed on did not bid on the alternate. So that will come back to us. And I think that's it. Little detail, but wanted to make sure that you guys all were aware of what's coming in front of this board today and in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Weeks. Next, we have our Policy and Board Governance Committee, Mr. Walker.
Thank you. The Policy and Board Governance Committee meeting took place on January 17th. Myself, members Williams and Fox were present along with Dr. Delgado. We are, as per our business, we were going through our policies, comparing them with updates provided to us, obviously, by Miller Johnson. As we went through what was presented to us this time around, pretty much everything was straightforward in terms of what we reviewed. We're all in agreement and want to present that tonight for first reading. However, we have one exception, and that is an update to Policy 16.15 or 1602, Threat Assessment. We're going to send this out to Miller Johnson for further review and discussion. We had some concerns about the language as it is written at this time. That was item number one. Item number two was a review of Administrative Regulation 4002, hiring and recommendations for hiring. It was requested that we take a look at that in the course of our meeting, and we found that the language was appropriate, and further discussion around that subject matter can take place at an upcoming board retreat. And that was what we had done. Thank you.
It was very exciting reading. Thank you, Mr. Walker. But important. Yeah, thank you. Okay, next we are moving into our discussion items, and up first we have the K-5 literacy adoption for reading and writing.
Thank you, Dr. Blau, and I see Mrs. Hendrickson and team coming up to the podium to talk to us about the K-5 literacy adoption for reading and writing. I'm very excited to hear your presentation.
Good evening, Board of Education and Dr. Delgado. We've been doing a lot of rich work around K-5 literacy, and literacy K-12, but particularly K-5. We came to you earlier last year around a K-2 foundational skills program called EL Skills Block, which covers the foundational skill standards of K-2. What we're coming to you with tonight is a proposal for a new K-5 core literacy program for reading, writing, speaking, listening, and language, moving from a balanced literacy to what's called a knowledge-based literacy approach. And so we're excited to have Kathy Olenzik, who is our K-5 literacy coordinator, along with a few staff members who are in the audience as well as up here with us, who are amazing teacher leaders who have been supporting this work. So we'll walk through the presentation, and then you'll have an opportunity afterwards to ask some questions. So just kind of take notes of what kind of questions you might want to ask as we close out our presentation. So I'll hand it over to Kathy Olenzik.
All right, good evening, Board and Dr. Delgado. I am, as Margaret said, I'm the K-5 Literacy Coordinator for K-5 here in Farmington. And I'm super excited to bring to you tonight a proposal for the adoption of a new ELA core ELA program for K-5. We've been working on this adoption since last year, and through a rigorous preview cycle process, we are confidently bringing to you the recommendation of Wit and Wisdom for implementation in all of our K-5 classrooms. Wit and Wisdom is a comprehensive ELA curriculum that addresses, as Margaret said, the reading, writing, and language standards currently required in the Michigan Common Core. Last year, you'll probably remember, I was here. I had a similar slide deck. And at that time, we adopted Skills Block for our K-2 classrooms, which addresses only the Michigan Foundational Skills Standards, that is phonemic awareness and phonics. We know that this is a critical component of early literacy development. However, it is only one part of a comprehensive literacy curriculum. Wit and Wisdom will address all of the additional Michigan K-5 standards for reading, writing, language, as well as speaking and listening standards. So in grades K-2, our teachers will continue to utilize Skills Block to explicitly address phonics and decoding skills alongside Wit and Wisdom to address all of the other reading and writing standards. Sorry. All right. So our main purpose in exploring the adoption of a new ELA curriculum in K-5 is to ensure that our teachers are provided with a resource that is better aligned with the essential literacy practices, which you see here, as well as best practice in the science of reading. We're currently using the MESA units of study, which are based on balanced literacy and a readers and writers workshop model, and have been around since 2010. Teachers have expressed concerns that these units of study are weak in addressing certain standards, including grammar and vocabulary, as well as concerns about the lack of a clear scope and sequence of instruction and lack of consistency across the grades. Our FPS literacy data shows that while our K-5 students demonstrate some areas of strength in the area of literacy, there's also plenty of room for improvement and growth. So we hope to be able to address these growth areas while also addressing the concerns of our teachers by providing a comprehensive ELA curriculum along with a supportive professional development plan that includes well-rounded training as well as an ongoing instructional coaching support. So we know that the magic sauce is really in those two pieces, the comprehensive curriculum as well as ongoing teacher learning. So we looked at two high-quality resources, both of which received high scores from Ed Reports. We looked at Wit and Wisdom and EL Education. We used a preview cycle process similar to what we used to select Skills Block last year. We had two cohorts of teachers that previewed one of the two programs, Wit and Wisdom and EL. Each of the 20 teachers involved in the pilot had a full day of training and then taught one module with their students this fall, so that was between 8 and 12 weeks, depending. And then they came together in December to debrief their experience and evaluate each program using an evaluation tool that outlined specific look-fors for our district. So we designed that tool to align with our FPS mission, vision, and instructional focus. We also, in addition to these formal preview cycles, we also provided informal opportunities for any teachers not involved in the pilot to learn more about each program and preview the materials. So I wanted to take a moment before we dig into the highlights of Wit and Wisdom to shout out our teachers who participated in preview cycles. Many of these teachers also had teammates that are not listed here that joined them in previewing these programs. We know that teacher voice is critical to an important decision like this one, and we could not have done it without this dedicated group of educators who have gone above and beyond and put in a tremendous amount of time and effort to ensure that we're making a decision that works for our FPS staff and students. So a huge thank you to them, And if any of you are here tonight, if you could stand and be acknowledged. I know we had more that were wanting to come, but because of the snow, they were not able to. So listed here, you'll see some highlights of, so I'm just going to kind of walk through some of the highlights of Wit and Wisdom and how it is different from what we're currently using. First, Wit and Wisdom provides 75 to 90 minutes of integrated instruction that includes reading, writing, vocabulary, and grammar, as well as embedded speaking and listening standards. So reading and writing are taught together rather than as separate subjects as they are now. And each Wit and Wisdom lesson includes a 15-minute language dive, which includes explicit instruction of vocabulary and grammar, which is something that has been missing from our current units of study. Additionally, Wit and Wisdom is considered to be knowledge building, as Margaret mentioned. This essentially means that the curriculum directly and systematically addresses literacy skills, such as comprehension strategies, reading fluency, and vocabulary, while simultaneously building student knowledge about the world through science, social studies, and history topics. In each module, and there are 4 in each grade, students dig deeply into a topic and explore an essential question by reading and rereading a set of text that intentionally build upon one another. There are also daily opportunities for students to talk about their learning through daily collaborative discussion with peers and writing tasks that are centered on the topics and texts that they're learning about. The text sets that are included with each Wit and Wisdom module include both fiction and nonfiction texts, and what's exciting is it's not just books. The curated text sets that are part of this program include books, articles, videos, artwork, poetry, and so much more to support students' learning of this content from multiple perspectives. Additionally, Wit and Wisdom provides a spiraling of both this content knowledge and skills instruction across K-5 that allows students to make connections in their learning and to solidify their skills and build on and deepen their knowledge as they move through the grades. And finally, and importantly, the structure of Wit and Wisdom is going to allow us to move away from instruction that focuses on student reading level. The instructional routines and strategies utilized within the module lessons enable all students to have access to the same knowledge, content, and grade level reading material. This will level the playing field for all students, including our multilingual learners and striving readers who will no longer be locked into texts that are considered to be at their instructional reading level. Instead of watering down instruction to meet the instructional level of a student, teachers will be provided with the resources and tools to differentiate instruction so that all students can access the same grade level texts and content. So that's very exciting part of this. This slide is just a sneak peek at the topics and essential questions in each module across K-5. And here you see the sample text set. This is from grade 1, module 1, and you can see that students will study a variety of texts and videos while considering the essential question, which is how do books change lives around the world? You can see that they're going to utilize the Farmer's Almanac as well as the American Sign Language Dictionary, in addition to a nice selection of picture books and a couple of videos to build their knowledge around this essential question. And then here, this slide just really walks through how the essential question plays out throughout what Wit and Wisdom calls a question arc. Through those focusing questions, students are going to build their knowledge by taking a deep dive into the texts. Teachers will tackle specific reading standards such as story elements and character analysis and central message through these content questions. And they're going to deliver explicit instruction in writing and grammar through the craft questions. And you can see this is kind of a bird's eye view of Module 1 in first grade and how that plays out with the knowledge and the content and the skills together. In your packet, you have a copy of this module outline as well as one from fourth grade and a sample lesson plan for third grade with annotations that discuss each aspect of a Wit and Wisdom lesson. And then also at the back table, we put together a display with some additional materials for you to preview. And we will have these materials at central office for a period of time after this board meeting for any community members who might want to take a closer look as well. So I'd like to take a moment to introduce two of our preview cycle teachers, Angelina Lowe and Merari Gardner. They're standing behind me here. And these two teachers from Lanigan were a unique part of our preview cycles in that they've had experience, fairly extensive experience with both of these programs that we piloted. And through those experiences, they have high-level confidence that Wit and Wisdom was the right fit for our students, and they're going to take a minute to briefly share their insights.
Hi. As Kathy said, I'm Angelina Lowe. I tried Wit and Wisdom and EL, and Kathy asked me to address how this program meets the needs of all of our students, a variety of learners. And the Wit and Wisdom curriculum incorporates multimodalities of learning, such as hands-on activities, listening and speaking exercises, and movement opportunities, while addressing the reading and writing language standards. This approach is particularly beneficial for our English language learners and students with limited language skills, as it helps them engage and comprehend the content more effectively. Moreover, the repeated readings and extended time spent with each text allows students to deepen their understanding and develop critical thinking skills. The routines established by the curriculum have also contributed to a sense of structure and familiarity in the classroom, positively impacting student learning. And this curriculum also strongly emphasizes content-specific and academic vocabulary with the aid of a vocabulary wall. This has deepened our students' knowledge while expanding their language proficiency and enhancing their overall reading and writing abilities.
Good evening, I'm Merari Gardner, and I had the privilege of teaching 5th grade. And the most powerful thing for me teaching this has been the level of engagement that my students have had. In 24 years of teaching, I've never had so many 5th graders want more and more information about westward expansion. And it's just so empowering to see my students, no matter what language they speak at home, no matter what the IEP says, no matter what anyone else has said about what they can and can't do, to see my students so empowered and engaged in conversation and collaboration amongst each other has been empowering for me as a teacher. And it's just been heartwarming. I feel encouraged just seeing what I see in my classroom. The kids are able to just have discussions amongst each other, write about it, discuss it, and then say, I can do this. And to hear kids say that about writing is just, in and of itself, just such a win. And I'm just happy that this is where we're going. I had taught a knowledge-based curriculum before, and then came last year to the district and felt like I had to just focus on all these isolated strategies where the kids constantly asked, what level am I on? What level am I on? I haven't had a single student ask me that this year, because they are not just data. They are part of their learning. They've taken ownership of it, and I'm happy to be here and tell you about that. Thank you.
Thank you both very much. So we're at the end. I think I tried to stick to 10 minutes. I think we might have been at 12 or 14. So I just wanted to do a quick walkthrough. We're pending your approval. Our next steps are to think about the purchase of materials. Our teachers like to get things early so they can start digging in. So our plan is to begin purchasing materials immediately upon board approval, so we can get those things into the hands of teachers. We're in the process of developing this comprehensive professional learning plan, which will be part of the implementation process and will include initial and ongoing training, as I mentioned, and coaching for teachers, coaches, and administrators. We know every stakeholder needs to be part of that process in order for this to succeed. And then we're hoping to hit the ground running in the fall of 2024. So thank you very much for listening, and we'll take any questions that you guys might have.
Ms. Mead?
Thank you for presenting. First, can you remind me of the teachers that presented? What grade level are you teaching at?
I teach second.
Second. Fifth. Okay, perfect. So last year, I think it was, well, yeah, because we're in 2024. I'm sure it was last year. We adopted Skills Block for K through 12, and K2, I'm sorry, K through 2, yeah, because it's focused on phonics, and by 12, you should know your phonics. Sorry, K through 2. So I wanted to understand how this curriculum aligns with that, to make sure that I kind of understand the full picture here.
So as I mentioned, this skills block really is a focus on phonics and phonemic awareness and a little bit of fluency. And in our K2 classrooms, that is an hour block of time where there's some explicit whole class instruction, and then their small group instruction is also focused on those foundational skills in K2. And then they're going to have this additional block of time for wit and wisdom, where they're going to be, utilizing these diverse text sets and digging into some content while addressing the reading literature, the reading informational standards, the language standards, all the standards that aren't foundational skills are going to be addressed in that other block. So they actually will work beautifully together, because one thing that Wit and Wisdom does not have is a phonics program. That's not part of the program. So we knew, that skills block was going to work hand in hand with whatever we adopted, and then it was going to explicitly address those skills.
Thank you.
Yes, Lisa.
I love the fact that you have it where there's some comprehension. Reading is not just reading words. You have to know how to comprehend. This is why in March, I used to dress up like all these characters to come in and read and make sure I ask the questions. So this is how you get your literacy part. You stated that you want to get this up and running. Does this mean that the books and the equipment and the things that you need, does that mean we will be updating them yearly? Or how long do we do this to keep this going so that everything will be going in the same direction, the right direction, and we don't want this to be books put or stuff that we purchase put off in a storage bin, pushed off to the side?
Well, one of the most important things is a system of support of professional development for implementation. And with the coaching support, it really helps us create consistency across grade levels and across buildings. So there's been a lot of work over the last few years around ensuring that we see fidelity with our adopted instructional resources that the board approves. And so with the way we support initial learning and ongoing implementation, ongoing progress monitoring, ongoing support, we are able to, as a system, from central office, building administrators, teacher leaders, teachers in the classroom, consistently move forward together. What we do make sure is that we have an additional outlay of funds for the initial adoption, but then we know what the recurring costs are each year. All of our programs generally have a subscription fee cost as well as consumable costs, and so we've calculated out the initial budget as well as ensuring that we build in our budget. So we work with the business office to make sure that we have the ongoing funds to get the consumables replaced. We spend a lot of other money also on understand outside of EL Skills Block in this program. We have been funding a lot of money for classroom libraries, so kids always have access to a diverse set of texts for some personal and independent reading. And so it's how we support the work that really supports fidelity over a long time, so we don't sway and go another direction until we find that there's some things that we need to make a shift. So for example, we're making a shift now after having a resource for 2010. So generally, every 5 to 7 years, you should be reviewing a resource in light of your data set.
Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Heinrich.
Yeah, I've got a few comments and questions, but one thing, just listening to the presentation and our observation of the K2 foundational skills and the mom, grandma, and me, I'm thinking that's like helping kids with how to read, and this reading program is what they're reading. Is that? Okay.
Yes, and actually,
go back
let's see
to
if
that
I
image.
think I can go back to it. So I put a slide in here and then I hid it because in case this question came up. I kind of wanted to bring this back up. You may or may not remember this slide from last year, which talked about Scarborough's reading rope, and this is a great visual because it highlights exactly that. The bottom part of the rope is that learning to read the words part that you're talking about. We call it word recognition, and that's the green strands of the rope. And then that upper portion of the rope is the language comprehension piece that we talk about, and Angie mentioned, comprehension. And I like that it's a rope because the pieces weave together. We don't teach them how to read the words first and wait to teach comprehension. It's all kind of happening simultaneously, and all of the strands of the rope are equally important. But I thought this was a good visual to kind of address that question.
So the EL skills block is the green rope. That's what we made sure was in place, and now Wit and Wisdom will be that, I don't know, that blue, the light blue rope.
Plus,
Yeah.
because the blue part really includes speaking and listening standards as well.
Yeah, I appreciate all the detailed information that you gave us. I mean, I went through and I was looking, some of the things that really impressed me with this were the core texts, how they included the award-winning authors, and so it's not, the old standard readers and stuff, and the diversity in the text. I mean, it's just, I read a book and, Cinderella Stories that's multicultural, which I just learned this year. And so, I mean, our kids are learning this in K through 5. So, the research-based, the evidence-based, that information that you shared, I like that. I like the homeschool connections. I like that, the assessment materials with that. I had a question in the information we had. It had something about geodes, and you didn't talk about that. And so
Yeah.
what are the geodes?
So I can speak to that. So geodes are what we would call a decodable text. Our skills block does come with decodable texts that align with the skills block scope and sequence. So as students learn certain letter-sound correspondences, they practice that within the context of a decodable text where they only see those letter sounds and patterns that they've learned up until that point. And skills block comes with a set of those. What's great about Wit and Wisdom is they have curated some decodable text sets that align with the content being taught in these modules, it's a whole other thing, it's a whole other part of Wit and Wisdom that we're not planning to roll out for the first year of implementation, just because we want to be very thoughtful about taking things in stride and making sure to chunk things out in a way that's manageable for teachers. But we're very excited about the fact that those geodes exist, because they will work really nicely with what our K2 students are doing in Skills Block, because they're going to have this nice set of decodables, maybe starting next year or the year after, that they can use as part of their phonics and phonemic awareness instruction. So they'll be able to apply those skills in a text that aligns with those skills, as well as that content knowledge that they're learning about in each of the modules.
So is that cost built in with what we're approving now?
No,
So
I did
that'll
not
be
include that
future
in
costs?
this,
Okay.
it's not included in this quote because we are not planning to include that as part of this initial implementation.
Okay, and can I still keep asking?
Yes.
Okay. You talked about differentiated instruction, which, that's a buzzword and it's hard to do. So, and so all students, I like all students having access to grade level materials so that, but what about the kids that are reading above grade level? Does this hold them back or how does that work?
So, it was pretty amazing. Each month, we meet with the elementary principals, as well as middle school and high school. And one of the things we do is we look at video snippets of our own classrooms and calibrate our observations. And a number of those videos that we watch were actually of teachers teaching either the EL education that we previewed or Wit and Wisdom. And one of the most compelling pieces, two compelling pieces, is one, the richness of what you saw in the learning up on the walls and in possession of students, either between what they were writing or what they were talking about. The other compelling piece is you really couldn't tell who was who in that classroom, and that was whether a student was considered what we might have historically said an advanced reader versus a striving reader. You couldn't tell who was who. And so what's nice about the way this resource is built is it really allows for that continuum of learner that our prior resource did not. So it helps our K-5 students and each grade level, that continuum from students that might be considered higher performing at that grade level, working above grade level content, or who are currently not quite there yet.
One of the challenges that I have faced, and I'm like trying not to drool as a classroom teacher, this is so exciting, is that when my students and I have been learning about some topic, I'm able to find resources for the students who are at grade level or above grade level, but it's been very difficult to find resources that are content-based, you know, the Renaissance, Civil War, whatever, you know, topic, to find resources that are content-rich at reading levels for my struggling students. So without having to give, say, a fourth grader something that is a first grade, easy-to-read book. You know, these materials are scaled to the age level and maturity level of, say, a fourth grader, rich with content but decodable at the levels that they're at. So this is filling in that resource without each individual teacher having to go and seek out and find all those resources, to have them provided in your classroom for you. These sets of materials is really wonderful. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We thank you very much, and thank you teachers who are watching as well as who's here for all the work you've done. Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you. Wonderful. Next, under discussion items, the STEAM Academy Fire Alarm.
Yeah, I see Mr. Barth and team coming up to talk to us about the fire alarm. You can try to top our literacy excitement.
It's Dr. Barth. Dr. Barth, please. Real quick, and I brought Aaron Phillips with me. Aaron, can you step out? Aaron's with me to talk about Bid Pack 12, which is necessary to bring the fire alarm system at STEAM up to code. Currently, it's two systems there right now. One's antiquated. Don't ask me why this was done in the past. Maybe it's a budget thing. However, now we're reaching a point where some of the equipment isn't failing, but it's hard to get parts to replace this. So we want to bring this up to, like every other building, have the best fire alarm system at STEAM. But I'll let Aaron tell you more about the process, the bid process. We're looking at this as a discussion item now and action item at the next meeting. So, Aaron?
Thanks, John. Good evening, everyone. So John hit the nail on the head. It's basically, fire alarms are inherently complex. To keep it simple, half the building was an old fire alarm system, the other half was a newer fire alarm system. So we're taking the old half of the fire alarm, bringing that up to the newer half. So it keeps it in parity with other schools and up to code, and makes sure that the audible systems are audible and the visual systems are visual, and that's good. It keeps our kids safe, right? So Wakely Associates designed the bid package. It went out for bid. The bid, that was on Thursday, January the 11th, we had a bid opening. We had 4 bidders. The bids range from about $275,000 up to almost $600,000, so pretty broad bid range there. We interviewed the apparent low bidder, Advanced Contracting Electrical Solutions. They've done quite a bit of work in the district throughout the past several years, and they most recently just got done doing the remodeling work there, the electrical remodeling of STEAM Academy. So they were very familiar with the building itself. So after extensive post-bid interviews with the team, we are recommending a contract award to Advanced Contracting and Electrical Services, Incorporated, in the amount of $279,211. For the work, we will plan on starting work around spring break, second shift work, so it won't impact students or instruction. Continue that work second shift through the school year, and then have a turnover of the system where we actually swap the fire alarm system out once school dismisses for the summer.
Yes, Mr. Rich.
Just clarifying the amount, that 279 is just that initial hard construction cost, not the contingency?
Correct. I think the letter from Plant Moran has some built-in contingencies there. I can scroll
I
down.
think it's like 301 is the,
You're correct.
right. I'm just making sure that.
Correct.
These are
That's just
stated
for the
correctly.
hard construction contract award for the contractor.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moving on to central office renovation, bid pack 13.
And I see Mr. Barth is going to remain there and take us through the central office renovation proposal.
Good evening again. I know Terry did a great job, Ms. Williams did a great job explaining what was discussed at the Finance Committee meeting. I was going to have her come up and actually do the presentation. But she nailed it on the head. There's a lot of thought went into this, months and months of thought as to what the best purpose for that building was. Like Farmington, like the old Farmington Community School, that was initially years ago slated for demolition, that's now a beautiful new building for our 18 to 26-year-old transition students. So we thought the same thing applied to this building. So when thinking about it, and Ms. Williams did a great job in explaining all of the challenges with that building in terms of what to do with it, right? It dates to 1960, so it's older. It's getting older. Structurally, it's sound, it's got good bones, but it's an older building. So we knew that we had to do something with that building. We couldn't leave it sort of vacant when central office moves to the old Visions. So what I've got to show you is sort of the thought that went behind this. And I've got Brian Smilnak from Wakely Associates, the architect, to sort of design the thought for converting it to a warehouse facility. But as I scroll down here, and again, these are drawings I didn't do, obviously. This was done by Wakely. They looked at that building as to how it could function best. And so we talked a lot as a group about could it serve the students in some capacity, like a learning center of some sort? Again, you deal with ADA requirements, an elevator. You have to tear the building apart to make it conducive to that. A lot of the building isn't conditioned, air conditioned. So ultimately, we looked at either demoing the building, just tearing it down completely, or doing something sort of, not radical, but sort of re-envision that whole space. And so, again, we did our due diligence of looking at what we could do with that building in terms of, can we tear it down and sell it? No, it's only worth a couple $100,000. It's only 2 acres, and it acts as a retaining wall. So we really couldn't do much with selling the property. It's also zoned residential because the thought was, could we sell it to a business and have them use that building and make some money, right? Well, it's zoned residential, and in Farmington, it's going to be very difficult, or Farmington Hills, it's very difficult to convert a building from R1 residential to commercial, especially in that location. So again, we ultimately came back to a warehouse space, and I know the board members toured that building the other day. You can see how cut up it is. I call it a submarine. It's very difficult to get around in the building for people to talk to each other. There's an upstairs and downstairs, HR is downstairs. So it really makes it difficult to do the job that we're supposed to be doing. So in looking at the building, we first talked about, should we tear the building apart? Should we gut it and make it a big warehouse? There's really no need. The building way it's designed has certain sections, and if I scroll down, you can see that I took the liberty of putting rooms to schools, so it could be divided up by larger spaces for North and Farmington. For Warner and Power and East, it's slightly smaller. For the smaller elementaries, they've each got a space. The reason behind that is, if a building needs storage space, they'll always know where to go to get it. Likely it'll be our staff to go get it, obviously, but they'll know where it is to go get it and to store stuff, and it's safe there. So when Wakely Associates looked at the building, it's actually built to be structurally sound and to be very secure-minded. So really, there's some windows on the first floor, but we talked a lot about that, whether we had panels or we put alarms on the glass. Again, we could make it a secure warehouse. There's also, and you know this, there's a loading dock downstairs. So a lot of the stuff that comes in and out, new furniture or whatever, basically has a loading dock space there, a big empty space for items to be stored there, either permanently or not. So I want to take you through a few slides beyond this. And again, these were sort of design concepts, knowing that this wasn't approved yet, but really that's the best use of the space that we saw. So we talk about, and it was mentioned about building storage. Our purpose wasn't to find classroom space or office space. If we find some of that's great. Our purpose was to get stuff sort of out of spaces where they shouldn't be right now. A lot of it's crammed into rooms. I don't know how they get stuff out of there. So we took a few pictures throughout the district. Obviously, these are items that they need to keep, and use at some point, but really they don't need them at any one moment. So our staff could go get items as they need it. I mentioned they're stored in areas they shouldn't be stored, like boiler rooms. Electrical rooms are supposed to have nothing stored in them. We have items just stacked into rooms at some of the elementary schools. Again, boxes on boxes. Here's an IT room that's got, you can see it's got stuff crammed in there. We can't get to things. So it just makes it, I mean, when you think about it, why are we storing that stuff? If we need the stuff, we should keep it, but why are we storing it in buildings if we have a space we could use? I also mentioned semi-trailer storage. We've been using that since we moved Farmington community items out of that building that we wanted to keep. Obviously, it was in storage in that building. That building acted as storage. So now we have 5 semi-trailers over in Walled Lake being used for storage for us. What that amounts to is about $1,700 a month, $21,000 a year. It's an expense that we don't really need if we've got a building we can store things in. And you can see that they're sort of cram full too. Now, these items are not items that we want to get rid of necessarily. Some of it is bond furniture from the last bond that we know we'll use. Some of it is just items that the schools wanted us to keep in terms of chairs. Our intent is, if it goes forward, to purge a lot of the stuff. So we have staff at the ready to go in and inventory the items like they should be, and also to get rid of items that we don't need any, sell some items off if we decide to do that, and then store the items that we need and to be able to get those items when we need them. I mentioned the cost, again, $21,000 a year. Over at our facilities building, we're also using that for storage. I don't know if you've been there lately, but if you look in our warehouse, it's pretty much crammed full of stuff. We don't have room for stuff. If we were to empty a lot of stuff out, we could bring more equipment inside, like in the dead of winter, we could bring trucks in. We just can't do that now. So it'd be nice for us to purge a lot of this stuff too as well. And again, this is throughout the district, because that's the one building, it's every building that is being used for storage. So there's a lot of reasons to consider this building to act as a storage facility. It's centrally located. It's right in the center of the district. It's perfect for distributing items. It gives new life to a building that was destined for destruction. I mean, we're going to tear that building down if we didn't have use for it. So in the last bond, a new roof was put on that building. So structurally, I mentioned it's sound. It's got a new roof. It would free up space in our buildings, in our schools, in our maintenance building. It eliminates the cost of current and future costs, storage costs. Most districts in Southeast Michigan, and I'd argue all of Michigan, don't have the opportunity to build or repurpose a 21,000 square foot building. They just don't. So they rent space like we do. They put stuff in there, and Chris can attest this at Walled Lake. They store stuff in buildings until they need it. The cost of building a comparable warehouse, actually a smaller warehouse, exceeds $3 million. So costs are high to build a building from scratch. We know that. We don't really have a place to do that. This is a perfect opportunity. As mentioned, it would cost $500,000 plus to tear this building down because it acts as a retaining wall. There's abatement to do in the building, that kind of thing. So it's really not worth it to tear it down. It's going to cost more than it's worth. And then the bond team that's here, we were able to reduce the cost to renovate this building into a warehouse from $800,000 to $600,000 by looking at interior spaces, not having to tear down walls, just divvying up the school. The old boardroom in Ms. Coffin's area would become one large conditioned space. It's secure. It's got doors from the outside and from the inside that are lockable. It'd be a conditioned space or conditioned heated, so you could store musical instruments there, certain papers there that you need, the schools need. It's a conditioned space, big open conditioned space. So the rest of the building would pretty much stay as it is with lighting and that kind of thing. By building code, we're not required to do a lot of work to that building if it's not occupied, which we have no intention to have an office there. It's just a warehouse. So we see this as a win-win situation for the district. This is a discussion item currently. What we'd like is the next meeting is to give us a go-ahead to go forward in creating bid documents, putting out for bid, see what kind of response we get, and going forward with it. If you approve this, it would actually be work done after central office moves, so it wouldn't lay vacant. We'd start this work in the fall of this year. So, questions, comments?
Any questions? Okay.
So, because we did a walkthrough, so you're saying that, like, I'm looking at the page with all the schools noted where they would have, so you're going to keep the existing walls, you're not going to take those down?
There are a few interior walls that will come out to even out the spaces. We've already identified those,
Okay.
but they're not structural walls.
Okay.
So there's going to be minimal cost in terms of creating spaces, and we'll put shelving in there, some of which we have currently, but we'll put shelves in there for the schools. I mean, really, it's an ideal location. because you can go through that upper, so all the schools would go basically into the upper floor, and then the lower floor would be used for stuff that comes in out the larger stuff in the district, so.
Yeah, it makes sense. So you'll take out some walls, but not all the
Correct.
walls? Okay, all right, so that was kind of clear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have the FHS canopy.
And I'm going to invite Aaron Phillips back to the podium to talk about the reasons why this had to go out for bid.
You guys look so familiar.
Thanks. Good evening again. Ms. Weems alluded to this earlier in the facilities and finance update. Yeah, it's just a point of clarity, the reason why you're going to see this back to you at the next board meeting. So bid package 11 had alternate number 3 as Farmington High School listed. There were multiple contractors associated with pricing that alternate. The steel contractor, the low and the awarded contractor associated with bid package 11 did not provide a bid for that alternate, for that steel alternate. So it's a steel canopy over the front entrance and a steel canopy over some decorative lettering that will be outside. So this small bid package will be associated directly just with that steel contractor to bid on alternate number 3 at the high school.
Just to clarify, we're not going to approve any additional costs because that's already been approved.
Correct.
No other questions? All right.
Thank you
Moving
very
on.
much.
Thank you.
Johnny, I don't get to sit down.
Thank you, gentlemen, all three of you. Next, we have our 2023-24 first budget amendment.
We do, and I see our wonderful Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, Mrs. Jennifer Kaminsky, to give us our first budget amendment presentation.
All right. Good evening, Board of Education and Dr. Delgado. I'm here to provide information on our first budget amendment for 2023-2024. So if you recall, the Board of Education is required to approve the budget for our new operating year in June prior to us starting our fiscal year on July 1. And most of the time, that's approved not knowing what our funding is going to be. So we have to make certain assumptions as we get this budget put into place. So just to talk a little bit about what's happened since July 1st of '23, we did receive a foundation allowance increase of $458 per pupil. We have increased at-risk or 31A funding. The special education foundation allowance funding is being fully funded at 100% now, in addition to that 28% reimbursement. Our enrollment increase projection of around 100 students did occur. Our interest revenue has been increasing due to rising interest rates. There's a new categorical for transportation funding. We received some additional MIPSERS offset revenue, and we also received some grant funding for mental health and safety and security. So to look at how that translates into the dollars in our general fund budget. So on the local revenue side, we did increase interest revenue by about $400,000. State revenues, there were many changes. So we have that increase in the MIPSERS offset revenue that helps to offset that normal cost that we pay for retirement. That's $600,000 increase. As I mentioned, we have a new categorical funding source for transportation. That's around $700,000, and that's not finalized yet. They're still making some adjustments, so that could be adjusted later in the spring. We have an increase in special education funding of about $500,000. So in our original budget, I did include an increase for about 12.5%, not the full funding at 100. And the state did agree to fund that at 100%, the foundation allowance. So that's the additional $500. We have additional MIPSERS UAL funding. That's $2 million. And again, that also increases our cost. We have an increase in 31A at-risk funding of about $1.7 million. And again, because that's a restricted grant, that also increases our cost. As I mentioned, increase in 31AA, that's for mental health and safety and security, of about $2 million. And again, restricted funding, so that increases our cost. And then on a net basis, an increase in other state categorical payments and grants of $300,000. On the federal revenue side, we saw an increase on a net basis of around $546,000. And just a reminder that our ESSER funds, so those final COVID dollars that we received, do need to be spent by 9/30 of '24. And so we're working through spending those funds and anticipate being compliant with that. On the interdistrict revenue side, we have an increase in PA-18 funding. That's the special education funding we receive through Oakland Schools of around $276,000, and then an increase in transfers and other transactions. So due to increased costs in the Nutrition Services Fund, we are able to transfer additional funds to the general fund to help cover those indirect costs. So on the expenditure side, we did revise all salary and benefit numbers based on actual staffing in place. As I mentioned, our federal grant revenues increased by 546, so again, a corresponding increase in expenditures of the same amount. An increase in state grant expenditures for those restricted funds of about $4.6 million. So mainly our at-risk 31A, mental health, and safety and security, as well as some of the other state grants. MIPSERS is another big one. We have increased staffing for math intervention at the elementary level. We have 3 math specialists in the current year. We have increased staffing for additional special education classrooms and student support services, and that would be social work, psychology, those type of additional supports needed. We have increased a position for auditorium support at both high schools, and that's really to help coordinate all those activities that take place within the auditoriums, as well as help with middle school scheduling as well. We have an increase in the per pupil building allocation. So each of the buildings did receive an increase in their building budget. We have an increase in instructional materials for music, phys ed, art, as well as textbook adoptions. We have a decrease in intergovernmental payments, and that's really due to less special education students attending center programs outside of our district. And then we've reviewed all other lines and adjusted those based upon our current known factors. So overall, the general fund, the amended budget for 23-24, we have revenues of approximately $180.2 million, expenditures of $180.1, with our revenues exceeding expenditures around $125,000. So essentially a balanced budget right now. Other funds that we did amend for 23-24, our Nutrition Services Program, and that was really to adjust the funding source for the revenue. Typically, we received more federal funding, but now with the state providing funding for free breakfast and lunch, we're receiving more funding there. So we adjusted that as well as expenditures. We did revise our internal service fund, our benefit stabilization fund, based on revised claims costs. On the capital projects fund side, we did finish spending the 2018 building and site fund, so that fund is complete, and we have an increase in expenditures for revised costs in our 2023 bond fund. So just some future unknowns, whether, and this is something we're always thinking about, will we receive a foundation allowance increase in the future? Will those SEL funds continue? Safety and security, will that be a priority of the administration? And then whether we receive those as restricted or unrestricted funds. Again, restricted, you can spend it on a specific purpose, whereas unrestricted can be used to support the district as a whole. Enrollment projections, which we'll be obtaining soon, and then the federal and state economies. So at the January 12th Revenue Estimating Conference, they did recognize that there is still an increase in revenue. However, it's not to the levels that it's been the last couple of years. So we'll see how things play out prior to the governor's budget. So just next steps and future considerations. We're continuing to evaluate our instructional priorities, as well as do program evaluation. As mentioned, strategic planning committees will continue to inform some of our budget decisions and how we move forward. I'll be developing budget parameters and assumptions for 24-25. I'll also prepare forecasts for 25-26 as well as 26-27. And that'll be presented to the Board of Education for review and approval. Again, expiring ESSER funds and how those will impact future budgets. So we'll try and incorporate that into our forecasts. And the governor's budget, I believe she'll be releasing it the first week in February. And that is all I have this evening. I can answer any questions.
Any questions? Thank you so
Okay.
much for that thorough report.
All right. Thank you.
And finally, we have a review of the recommended policy updates from Miller and Johnson, and this is our first reading.
It is the committee's recommendation that this move forward for an action item at our next meeting, with the exception of, as I mentioned, update 16.15, policy 1602, until we find out more information about that. That can then be included at a later date. So if there are no questions about that, we would like to move that forward.
Any questions? Okay. Thank you. Next, we have public comment. I neglected to just say at the start of our meeting that we thank you for your interest in attending or viewing our FPS Board of Education meetings. The Open Meetings Act requires that all meetings of the Board of Education be held in public, and as a result, our board meetings are the only place and time that we as a board can legally work together on district matters. While these meetings are held in public for the purpose of full transparency, they are not public meetings. And while you are welcome to attend our board meetings in person or watch from elsewhere, we must take the time needed to address, discuss, and hear presentations on all matters of importance to our work for the district. During the public comment portion of our board meeting, thank you so much, Mr. Walker, members of the community are welcome to address the board. Each community member will have up to 3 minutes to speak. A timer on the screen will display the 3-minute countdown for each speaker during public comment. Thank you in advance for honoring this guideline. We wish to remind our community that this is not a meeting of the board. I'm sorry, that this is a meeting of the board held in public to provide transparency, but it is not a public meeting. And as a result, we will respectfully listen to your comments, but we will not respond or engage in dialogue with you in this particular venue. However, please be assured that we are listening closely to every comment, and that a member of the Board of Education or our Superintendent, Dr. Delgado, would be happy to speak with you after tonight's meeting to set up a time to engage in dialogue together and further address your concerns if you so desire. The cards for public comment are at the back, and if you would like to participate in public comment, just bring the card up to this ceramic dish right here. Mr. Eugene Greenstein.
Good evening. I was glad to hear about the science of reading finally making it to Farmington schools. But now the question is, what are we going to do for 6 through 12? The SAT score said literacy is still a big problem in the upper level schools, and those kids graduate. And I hope that the science of reading will address comments I'm making today, which is the high variability between our elementary schools in terms of literacy and math too. We learned from the Niche survey that Forest was one of the top elementary schools in the system, and Wood Creek was the worst based on literacy scores. If one drives through neighborhoods served by those schools, the housing appears to be similar values, yet Wood Creek has about 2.5 times the number of free lunches. So that's a question, why is that happening? Also, it's interesting that Lanigan academically does better than Wood Creek by 15 points in both literacy and math, while having the most free lunches in the system, 53% compared to Wood Creek's 41%. I live in the Wood Creek area school district over at 14 in Middlebelt, where houses in the past year have sold between $440,000 and $575,000. Families are not poor, but comfortable. The housing stock for Lanigan is much older and smaller than the Wood Creek schools. We learned in December, per a presentation by Dr. Delgado, that academic performance and poverty levels seem to track inversely. What's wrong with Lanigan is it doesn't follow that pattern. Dr. Coffin told me last week that Forest is a destination school. That explains a little. However, its scores are not great when compared to other close by suburbs, but it's much better than what's going on in the other Farmington schools. I'm telling you all this because the board should be asking a lot of questions about why and what are we going to do to get academic performance where it should be. In other words, across all schools. As taxpayers, I want to know why. I also want to know what the stretch achievement goal is for the schools that is recognized by both the board and Dr. Delgado. I have gone to enough board meetings over the past 2 years to know that the board is not discussing any of this as a board. Isn't it the board's job to make sure Dr. Delgado has the resources he needs to do the job and prioritize the resources he has to make sure academic performance gets the priority it deserves? These issues have been raised before, but the silence is deafening. The taxpayers knows there are problems and would appreciate hearing open and honest discussion on improvement efforts.
Thank you, Mr. Greenstein. Mr. Bill Levaway.
Got a handout, as usual. Follow along. And you've got,
Just give me the whole thing, and then I'll pass it down.
okay.
Thank you.
You didn't get one. Mr. Lugar, right? You didn't get one.
There should pass on. Thank you.
Okay, I've enclosed a table of niche scores by school, and that's going to be the subject. Is this what equity looks like? Budget season is here in Farmington Public Schools. We'll make a big deal about how it will spend over $170 million on our children's education. That's about $19,000 per student. Because we have no education value budget, are we buying an education pig in the poke with our hard-earned taxes? Recently, Farmington Public Schools was recognized among 2024's best schools in America by an outfit called Niche. The Farmington district was rated A-. Our average student achieved reading proficiency of 58% and math proficiency of 45%. However, when we drill down into individual school results, we find that B- rated Wood Creek Elementary School lags far behind at 27% reading proficiency versus 58% overall, a 31% gap. Math is 17%, a 28% gap. How tragic. Leadership, that's the missing ingredient that allows this dysfunction to continue. How do we know that? The board talks about but does not adopt SMART goals. A SMART goal is not a basic statement or wish. It is a clearly drawn pathway to success and a way to state not just what you want, but what you will do to accomplish it. Wood Creek data show that 50% of the students are African American, 43% are economically disadvantaged. For years, both subgroups have underperformed compared to all Farmington students. Many of these students come into Farmington from outside our district under the School of Choice program. At the same time, students within Wood Creek's boundaries have exercised their option to transfer out to other schools within the district. So here's a SMART goal for the board. Within the 2024 to 25 school year, add teachers at Wood Creek as needed, create a lane within each school day devoted to improving reading scores from 17% to 25% for these two subgroups, and develop rules to distribute School of Choice students more widely within the district. And of course, Eugene and I will be available to discuss this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Naima Khan. I apologize if I didn't pronounce that correctly.
No, that was good.
Okay. Good evening. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Naima Khan. I am a Farmington STEAM Academy mom. I've also served in the past as the youth director of the Tawhid Center Mosque that's just down the street from here, and that has put me in contact with many Farmington public school students, working closely with them. So I'm here today. Actually, before I start, I do want to express my appreciation for the Farmington Public School Board and Dr. Delgado. On October 12th, you sent a message to the FPS community acknowledging the disproportionate impact of the situation unfolding in Palestine on our students, and you lamented the loss of loved ones for those who have ties in the region. Your message was so balanced and sensitive that it was truly a testament to the beautiful diversity we have here in Farmington Hills. It filled me with pride, especially after hearing that neighboring towns were met with disgraceful hostility from their public school officials. That was on October 12th. We are now over 100 days into this conflict, and your students are not okay. I am here to ask you to take this sentiment one step further, to declare a proclamation to call for a ceasefire to end the violence in Palestine overseas that is deeply affecting many families and students here in Farmington Hills. Please do not underestimate the value of this gesture. It may simply be symbolic, but the impact of your words will do so much to reassure our community in these trying times. Last night, I had the opportunity to speak at our local city council meeting. The city hall was packed as it has never been before, with over 40 people testifying as I have and as I'm doing here, and over 300 in attendance. Unfortunately, the weather today prevented that same crowd here, and we also want to respect the time of our teachers who have school tomorrow, so we are not packing the room as much as we did last night. But I would like to convey some of the concerns that were expressed by my fellow Farmington Hill residents and many students last night. Many Muslim and Jewish and others who came in attendance. One in particular was the son of a Holocaust survivor, and all expressed their desire to end this genocide. Students who were present last night, some as young as 10 years old, expressed their inability to focus on their everyday tasks, haunted by the images they are seeing and worrying about their family over.
I'm sorry, that's the time.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Anwar Al-Kuzne.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Anwar Al-Kurna. It's a Q, so I might have wrote that bad. My writing's
I'm
not
sorry.
great. But I'm a resident of Farmington Hills. I'm 28 years old. I graduated from North Farmington High School, class of 2013. And during that time, I was a football player. I was an all Oakland County honor scholar athlete, and I was all Oakland County defensive end. And during that time, my head football coach was Todd Schultz, who some of you may know. He recently passed away this week, so my condolences to his family. During that time, he was a teacher and a coach, and he would teach his players and his students to be good leaders on the field and off the field, to hold the person next to you accountable on the field and off the field, and to stand up for justice on the field and off the field. And even though I graduated over 10 years ago now, I still have a lot of former teammates, a lot of former classmates, a lot of former teachers who reach out to me concerning the issues in Palestine, and they reach out to me showing their support and their desire for a ceasefire and a desire for standing up for justice. And so I wanted to come here and advise the board on the idea of making a proclamation for the ceasefire in Palestine. And the reason is because it affects the students that are currently in the schools, it affects the students in the past that went to these schools, and it will affect the students in the future. So that way they will know that when there is an injustice, that this board stood on the side of justice, just like our teachers and our coaches and our sports all taught us throughout our times in Farmington Public Schools. And thank you, that is it.
Thank you. Next, we have Sean Block. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, board. Good evening, Dr. Delgado, excuse me. I haven't spoken public in a while. I'm here to advocate for, my name is Dr. Sean Black. I live in Farmington. My son is a third grade student at STEAM. We actually live in the Forest Elementary boundary, but we heard so many great things about STEAM that one of us has to sacrifice, go out of our way to take him to STEAM every day, where our son technically could walk to school. I'm here to advocate not just for my son, but for his classmates as well. His teacher is out on leave, and I'm not here, things happen with health, I'm not questioning that, but she did give prior notice, so it wasn't a surprise that she went out. And so report cards were supposed to come out, and I asked the principal, what about the report cards? He basically didn't have a response. He looked at me and then he said, kind of gave me the shoe-off answer, we're working on it. I was very disappointed because my son was really anticipating getting his first report card. And he was disappointed. So that's number one, why I'm here, because my son was disappointed to get his first report card from STEAM. But the other reason is, a larger reason is, when I spoke to the principal, he had no plan for getting us the report cards. And that's problematic, in my opinion. The other part I want to mention about that is, with this situation is, and I probably wouldn't even be here right now, but the principal unilaterally decided that they will not put their grades on MyStar. I don't know how much you pay for MyStar, maybe 500 plus or more, but a year for the license. But if I'm a parent and I want to help my child, it's hard to do it, and you're keeping the grades hostage. There's no transparency. I don't see what's coming home. There are just a lot of questions about what's going on. And I don't think as a parent that I should, one, have to ask an 8-year-old every single day, what'd you do in school, so on and so forth. I should not have to do that when we have the technology to accomplish that. So that's a concern for me. And also the other concern was just the lack of customer service from the principal. I'm on my way to work, it's cold, it was a lot on that day. For me to get out my car and ask a question and you to have no clue about what we're going to do, what's your email, what's your phone number, I'm going to get back to you, nothing. He could have cared less. And that was problematic for me. And I wanted to share that with you because that's not the experience that a parent should have and the disappointment I should share with my child. All right? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Alexandria. I'm sorry, I'm having difficulty making out your last name. Peretsanus? Okay. Good evening.
Good evening, respected board members. My name is Alexandria Peresakis, and I'm a Palestinian Greek American, and I am a freshman in high school. I first urge you all to keep an open mind and heart and to ultimately approve of a ceasefire proclamation that we are asking you to consider. Imagine being in Gaza right now, while others sit in the position of power like this board. Wouldn't you want them to act against the genocide affecting your family and friends? Being closed-minded isn't an option in such situations. Please listen with an open heart. You don't need to be a politician, Palestinian, Muslim, or Jew to condemn the killing of innocent civilians. Being human is enough. If you don't condemn this genocide or call for a ceasefire, then in my view, you are complicit with the blood on your hands alongside President Biden and Prime Minister Netanyahu. Did you know that Farmington Hills contributes $1,303,497 to Israel, which is being used to commit this genocide? This money could have been used to improve our schools, roads, hospitals, and more. We need to focus on our community's needs here in Farmington Hills. Calling for a permanent ceasefire is the least we can do considering our funding role. Bombing hospitals, UN schools, churches, mosques, and innocent civilians, especially in 2024, is unacceptable. It is unjustifiable to annihilate a population, to use starvation as warfare, or to kill journalists covering these atrocities. Israel's attempt to silence Palestinians and hide their actions must not succeed. Over 1,000 children in Palestine have undergone limb amputation without anesthesia. Imagine their pain. Recently, my twin sister and I prepared a school presentation on Palestine's history dating back to the Ottoman Empire. It was purely historical, yet our teacher deemed it too controversial. Back in 4th grade, when I attended Forest Elementary, I remember being bullied for being Palestinian. When is it acceptable to silence us when our people are being massacred? Our history and culture should not be suppressed, just like the voices of these innocent civilians are being brutally murdered. World leaders like President Biden and Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, who support Netanyahu, will be remembered as supporters of tyranny. I urge you all to not be complicit in this genocide and to use your voice to help those who cannot use theirs. Please call for a ceasefire. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Next, we have Jenna Elura. I'm not sure if that's an R or an N or a V.
I was writing on my legs.
Okay.
It's Alewa.
Okay.
Yeah. Good evening, respected school board members and Dr. Delgado. My name is Jenna Alewa, and I stand before you to request a proclamation for a ceasefire in relation to the ongoing genocide in Palestine. Many of the students in the Farmington Public School District are a product of the Palestinian diaspora. The feeling of safety, security, inclusion, and well-being of all the students residing within this beautifully diverse district that many children are so fortunate to attend is essential. My family and I have resided in Farmington Hills for almost 14 years now, and we consider ourselves truly blessed. My children are fortunate to have embraced many meaningful friendships from all walks of life, in which we are exceptionally grateful. The diversity, love, compassion, and tolerance of our beautiful community is a testament to how individualistic values are applied, integrated, and upheld within our own schools. However, there are challenges, and when these challenges are overcome, it brings about a stronger sense of resilience and strength within our community. The ongoing genocide has left many students here within this district questioning their own safety and mental health, examples of which many of the students in our district are directly or indirectly affected during this genocide are in relation to depression, anxiety, trauma, grief, and a sense of communal alienation and acceptance. Those are just to mention a few to substantiate this necessary action by your educational board members. The most important aspect here is the certainty that all students attending Farmington Public Schools District have the feeling of safety, security, and that our representatives are as much advocates on this issue to ensure that we are advocating and partners for peace. Thank you for your time and commitment to Farmington Public School District. Again, I request a proclamation for a ceasefire with a feeling of safety, security, inclusion, and well-being of all the students attending, as well as future attendees of Farmington Public School. Let us stand together as a community on the right side of history as well as justice. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Aziz Smidi.
Good evening, Dr. Delgado and respected board members. My name is Azizi Smitty, a 14-year resident of Farmington Hills. I have 2 children that attend Farmington Public Schools. I am here to urge you for a proclamation for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. The magnitude of atrocities committed and imposed, starvation against innocent civilians has been devastating, and it has been going on for a long time. We are all responsible for creating a better world, and we must use our voices and actions to stand against genocide, hate, and violence. It is up to each and every one of us to make a difference and create a better future for Farmington Public School students for generations to come. As we all know, the situation in Gaza, Palestine, has been causing unimaginable suffering to the Palestinian people, and while the impact of this conflict is felt deeply by those living in Palestine, it is also affecting the mental health of students who attend Farmington Public Schools. The news of the bombing, the destruction, burnt bodies, loss of innocent lives in Palestine is constantly circulating in social media and news channels. The rise of Islamophobia and anti-Arab sentiments in America adds another layer of stress and anxiety for Farmington Public School students. Many Muslim students in our schools face discrimination and prejudice in their daily lives, which doesn't only affect their personal well-being, but also creates a sense of isolation within their own communities. But it's not just students of Palestinian descent who are affected. The genocide in Palestine is a humanitarian crisis, and it's affecting all students who have a strong sense of empathy and compassion. They see images of children being pulled up from under the rubble, the cries of grieving mothers, burnt bodies, and bombing of hospitals, homes, schools, mosques, churches, and this constant exposure of trauma can have a significant impact on their mental health. Furthermore, the lack of action and support from the Farmington Public School can also contribute to the students' stress. They may feel helpless, angry, frustrated, knowing that their voices and efforts are not being heard or acknowledged. So what can we do to support these students and their mental health? First and foremost.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you. Next, we have Muhammad Abdallah.
Good evening. Dear respected school board members, thank you for having us and for giving us the time. Our time is short, so I just will add on to some of the thoughts that have been shared. I think that we all know of the disaster that's happening in Gaza and the man-made genocide there. And I think there's two key points here for us to remember. First of all, our kids, we teach them about history, and we teach them about genocides that are happening, and we teach them about taking action. And this is the first time that they have a live genocide happening in front of their eyes, and literally in front of their eyes, streamed live. They're watching it. And they're affected by this. And they're taking note of the discord between what they see and the rhetoric around them, from the mainstream media, from our government. So for the school district here to take a stand and issue a proclamation would go a far ways in telling them that, yes, they're not alone in feeling that the values that they feel this country is based on are true, that it would show them that this is how democracy works. Even if your elected officials are not listening to you, even if they don't care about you, this is how you voice your opinion. And you can get others to stand up with you and share your opinion. And those are very strong sentiments that you as a school district can help and support them, give them backbone. When they see that so many children their age are disproportionately affected in that genocide. Just the UN issued a report yesterday that, last few days, that 95% of the people around the world who are starving are in Gaza, little Gaza. 90% of all those who are facing starvation are in this little piece. And all that is funded by our government. All that is funded by our taxpayer money. And our kids are learning that, they're watching that. And they would, I think would go very far ways for the school district here to issue a proclamation for a ceasefire that stop the bloodshed. We do not support funding and arming it anymore as citizens. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jenna Paratsakis.
Hello, Farmington Public School Board members. My name is Jenna Paratsakis, and I am a Palestinian Greek American 7th grader at Farmington STEAM Academy. I'm here today to ask you to issue a proclamation for a ceasefire of Israel's continued bombardment on Gaza. It would greatly help the mental health of many of your students in Farmington Public Schools. Just last year, before October 7th, when I attended Warner Middle School, I received a lot of backlash for a video that I had made explaining the history of Palestine for a school project, and also for a shirt that I wore that said, "Palestine, my mind, heart, and soul." Being Palestinian is my identity, and I was attacked by students at the school to the point that I didn't want to wake up and come to school each morning. I know that many students like me are feeling this way right now because if pre-October 7th this happened, then post-October 7th it must be even worse. The Monday after October 7th, I went to school and my WIN teacher played a CNN 10 video with a very biased view of what happened on October 7th. They did not represent Palestine as a whole correctly or accurately, and it left me feeling very sick inside, so much like I had felt the previous year at Warner Middle School. Each day now, I see horrific clips from Gaza, and I feel my stomach plummet each time as my heart goes out to the children in Gaza. It has put a strain on my mental health, and a ceasefire would greatly help me and other students in Farmington Public Schools. I beseech you once again to issue a ceasefire of Israel's continued bombardment on Gaza. On the other hand, you may not think you have a hand in this, but I can guarantee you that you have power beyond measure to the children lying under the rubble. The atrocities being committed in Gaza are inhumane and unimaginable and need to stop immediately, which is why you should issue a proclamation for a ceasefire. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have David Villar.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to just reiterate my interest in us looking at improving the school lunch opportunities for the district, especially for the lower level grades. I think that will improve the students' learning focus. And as I stated before, if you look at other school systems throughout the world, there is a correlation between the quality of the education, the students' proficiency, and the quality of the food. Also, the SEL services that you guys are providing, it was a question of whether or not they will continue. I am advocating for them to continue. I also believe that community engagement is essential to addressing some of the disparities that have been raised, where certain schools in this district are underperforming. This is more of a community engagement issue for which the public school system can be a part, but we need to go beyond looking at the public school system as the central cause or the central impact of this. We must continue to be inclusive, and we must also understand that when you see disparities of such a degree, that community-to-community engagement is necessary to address some of the underlying causes. If we can facilitate that, that would be great. And as far as the international issues that are going on, let us keep things in mind. Even though Israel has a right to exist, and there was, they were trying to stop a terrorist attack, proportionality does play a role here. 1% of every Palestinian is not worth whatever it is they're trying to accomplish over there. There was and is and should be a better way to resolve this. And if a government, the 10th most powerful government in the world, can't find a better way, then hopefully the people over there will elect a better one. As far as we're concerned, yeah, we should support that proclamation.
Thank you. And next we have Mr. Paul Steele.
Good evening. Excuse me. So over the past couple years or so, I've occasionally reached out to pretty much all of you about trying to be a little more transparent. The latest example is your discussion tonight on the proposed policy updates. Within the current bylaws, we have policy 1003 titled Adoption or Amendment of Bylaws and Policies. And it states in part, the board will adopt or amend bylaws and policies after readings at 2 separate board meetings. I know you discussed it and you talked about it a little bit, but you didn't read it. And I honestly don't expect you to because they're probably pretty lengthy. But you also don't make the documents available online for any of the public to see. I understand you're having some technical difficulties now, but last year when you did this, about 14 months ago, it was the same thing. You discussed at the board meeting that you had some policy changes and approved them and never made the documents available online. So I don't, at least in my mind, that doesn't really meet the intent of the policy. I mean, you currently have policies in place to promote transparency. I'm just asking you to follow them, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment?
Thank you. Good evening, board members and Superintendent Dr. Delgado.
Announce your name.
Oh.
Just go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, my name is Nia Paratsakis, and I am a Farmington Hills resident of 34, or almost 30 years. And I've raised 4 kids in this district. The youngest, you just met Jenna, and actually you met her, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, raising money for orphans in Gaza. This is very difficult for me, I just have to say. For the last 109 days, we've been watching people get massacred. People ask, do you have family there? No, I don't have family there, but I consider the entire humanity a family. If you're human, you've got a heart in your heart. If you got a heart in your body and it's ticking and you've got blood running through your veins, we're all one person. We're all the same. We're all equal. I don't know if people are familiar with the history of Palestine, but Gaza has been under a siege. They are sieged by water, by air, by land. That means nothing or there's nothing that can get into Gaza without Israel saying yes, and nothing can come out of Gaza without Israel saying yes. Okay? You can't. If you've got cancer and you're dying of cancer, guess what? Israel has to say, yes, you can get out and go get treatment because there are no cancer specialty hospitals in Gaza. Gaza is 26 miles by 5 miles. It is the size of a marathon run, okay? Before October 7th, Gaza's water, 98% of it wasn't fit for drinking, okay? 70% of Gaza's population were refugees that were expelled from their indigenous land that could be traced for hundreds of years in their families. They were pushed off their land into Gaza. Gaza had 2.3 million people living in it. 50% of them were children, okay? 85% of Gaza's homes have been destroyed, leveled. We've all seen, I hope, everything on all the social media, and I hope that we can't pretend to say, you know, watching Fox News and all the other biased news that is the mainstream media, that makes up the mainstream media, and say, well, we didn't know what was going on. We know what was going on. We know exactly the massacres that are happening right now. Ann Arbor passed this symbolic proclamation for a ceasefire. I don't know why we can't. We have a huge, diverse population in this district, and we should have no problem doing so. We need to educate ourselves as to the history of Gaza. Gaza has never had an army or an air force or a naval. They have nothing to be, there's nothing to be defended against. Israel, they're not a threat to Israel, never have been. Thank you for listening to me.
Is there any further public comment? Is there any further public comment? Seeing no further public comment is now closed.
Dr. Blau?
We don't respond.
I'm not responding to them. I am saying, point of information, is there any way that our superintendent, since we've heard students with concerns, have our DEI director speak with our restorative practice team to discuss helping both sides. We heard this tonight. I also heard these complaints last night. You had more students last night that spoke. I know you don't accept public comment conversations during this time, but this is important that we need to discuss the health and the safety and the mental health of these students. So if Dr. Delgado doesn't mind, to reach out to our Director of DEI to have the restorative practice people speak to these students. Thank you.
Dr. Blau.
Yes.
I can share that since the conflict, we are very well aware of the needs and of support for all of our students, and we've been working diligently with our staff, with our counselors, with our administrators to make sure that this is a healthy and safe learning environment for all students. So this is not a new conversation. Mr. Smith and I speak about this often, and we absolutely have outreach to our students, to our student groups, to our student leaders, and will remain committed to supporting all of our students and families throughout the conflict.
Thank you so much, Dr. Delgado.
Okay. Next, we have items from the treasurer.
I move that the Board of Education approve the expenditures as outlined in the expenditure printout dated January 23rd, 2024, as follows: from the general fund, $15,304,619. From the athletics fund, $115,329. From the 2020 bond fund, $860,250. From the 2023 bond, $200,524. From the nutrition services fund, $600,517. From the benefit stabilization fund, $1,798,464, for a total of $18,879,703.
Support.
Motion by Ms. Weems to, I'm sorry, it's been a very emotional evening. Motion to approve the expenditures by Ms. Weems and seconded by Ms. Smith. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Fox?
Yes.
Ms. Weems?
Yes.
Ms. Heinrich?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
I myself am a yes. Dr. Blau?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda. Yes, Ms. Heinrich.
I move we approve the consent agenda consisting of approval of minutes, December 19th, 2023 closed session, January 9th, 2024 regular meeting, and B, personnel items.
Support.
Motion to approve the consent agenda by Ms. Heinrich, supported by Ms. Weems. All in favor?
Aye.
It was supported by Ms. Smith.
I'm sorry.
It was supported by me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I know, this has been a hard one.
Thank you. Thank you. I apologize. Supported by Ms. Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Do we have any reports this evening from our board representatives? Yes, Ms. Heinrich.
I got a couple of reports. I attended myself and Ms. Fox and Dr. Blau attended the Oakland County School Board Association meeting on, I don't know, I have the date. 21st, I think. But anyways, we had a legislative update. Legislative actions are very limited until the spring election, but they do have, hoping to introduce, work on a bipartisan school safety package. We had a video about what Oakland Schools can do for you and about the services that Oakland Schools provides districts in Oakland County. And our keynote speaker was a presentation by Brad Vanasek on updates on current school law and legal issues, and his slide deck was sent to us, and I sent it out to the board members. And there is a candidates forum on February 7th for representatives to the Mashpee Board of Representative election.
Okay. Yes.
I attended the student roundtable, and we had a really nice presentation by Anru, but I just want to compliment Dr. Delgado and the principals for really helping and guiding the students as far as they've been talking about this career fair, and they really were very supportive, helped them nail down a date, and the principals were talking about ways that they can facilitate the career fair as far as making building space available. The district has a central calendar, so the principals were able to, and Dr. Delgado was able to look at the calendar and see what was going on district-wide. And they were talking about using the individual instructional time, and doing maybe a shortened PEP assembly schedule to facilitate and accommodate for our students. And so it's really a group effort, and they're really supported. And it's May the 3rd, and they're looking for community members to come and present about not only their careers, but also internship available and interviewing skills and things like that. So I'm excited to see what goes on. I have one more. Can I report on, I was a representative on the Strategic Planning Committee, met last night for collaborative professional learning, equity, and innovation. And I was really impressed with the reflections as far as the commitment of the staff in talking about professional development and how it ties in with we had the new reading program, and how these things don't just happen. We don't just buy a program and say, here it is, go and implement it. But there's all these layers of support for professional development. And I was really impressed with the ownership that the teachers had. And also Margaret Hendrickson was there too, talking about ways that she can facilitate these things. So it's kind of a win-win type thing for our district. So I just wanted to compliment that group on that, and the community members for the work that we're doing with the strategic planning. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Heinrich. Any other board representative reports? Okay, seeing none, we have concluded our business according to our agenda, and so our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.